Genzopedia presents a reading of the Genzo Suikoden IV novelization by Takase Mie. Volume 1, first released September 10th, 2005. Chapter 1: The Day the Sea Became Theirs. The horizon where the deep azure sky met the ultramarine sea gleamed like a thin white ribbon of light. A pleasant sea breeze swelled the sails. Laszlo leaned against the ship's rail, staring at the calm, undulating horizon. No matter the hour, the endless blue sea always calmed his heart. Even today, simply gazing at it made him forget the passage of time. Surrendering himself to the wave's swell, he almost wished he could drift away forever. A voice at his side pulled him back to reality. What a perfect day for fishing! I could spend the whole day with my line in the water. Should have brought my rod. Tal stretched his solid frame, thrusting both hands high over his head. Tal, Jewel, pacing the deck with a tense expression, planted her hands on her slim waist and glared at him. What do you mean, perfect day for fishing? Do you even know what day this is? You're hopelessly carefree. Hey, I'm not the only one. Laszlo nearly nodded off and fell into the sea. Pull yourselves together, both of you. Jewel was about to scold further when she noticed Snow stepping out of the bridge. She fell silent. Tal, looking uncomfortable, glanced at the sky, patted Laszlo's shoulder, and walked away. Snow approached Laszlo, his refined features too pale to belong to a sailor, yet brightened by a clear smile as cloudless as today's sky. What were you talking about? Nothing much. Tal said it was a perfect day for fishing. Fishing? Typical. On a day this important. How trivial. Snow frowned in mild displeasure. Laszlo thought Tal hadn't meant it seriously, only trying to lighten the mood. But he held back from explaining, knowing Snow disliked Tal's carefree nature. You'll be fine, right, Laszlo? It's about time. Before he could finish, a shout rang from the bow. Enemy ship spotted! 3 vessels approaching at 2 o'clock. Laszlo jolted, gripping the rail. Just as reported, he saw enemy ships closing in. His body tensed. All right. Snow's strong voice carried as he set a hand on Laszlo's shoulder. You all right? You look tense. A little. Don't worry. I'm in command. We won't mess this up. It'll be fine. He raised his hand high and called out, his voice carrying clear and sharp. All hands to battle stations. Prepare the cannons. Can we confirm they're rune cannons? Yes, they appear equipped with water and lightning. Then we'll counter with lightning. Kenneth, prepare. Right. Kenneth, skilled with lightning rune cannons, took his position. Though they had trained often with blanks, he had little experience in real combat. Nervousness showed on his face. Snow called to him, steady and commanding. Stay calm, fire steadily. Keeping his eyes fixed on the enemy, he gave the order. Draw them in. Not yet. Not yet. Now, fire! The rune cannon erupted with a deep, resonant thud. The shot tinged bright green, streaked towards the enemy, leaving a glowing trail. It struck the deck dead on. Cheers broke out. Even usually calm Kenneth flushed with excitement at his flawless aim. Snow stayed composed, barking the next order. Not yet. Don't drop your guard. They'll fire back. Intercept! The deck came alive. By countering enemy shots with precise rune fire, they could nullify incoming attacks and deal heavy damage in return. Success or failure depended on the commander's judgment and the gunner's aim.
The exchange began. Kenneth's shot struck the enemy cannon shell cleanly.
"We did it!" Tal shouted triumphantly. The lightning rune nullified the water rune, then carried through to land another blow. In just 2 volleys, the enemy ship was crippled. "Well done, Kenneth. Total victory!" Snow's voice rang with joy as he moved to congratulate him. Then, a violent impact shook the deck. "What?" Laszlo instinctively caught Snow as he staggered. "Enemy attack! Boarding party incoming!" A lookout's voice rang in panic. While all eyes had been on the cannon battle, a small boat had slipped in from a blind spot. Snow paled, then barked sharp orders. "Don't panic!
There's only a few. Don't be afraid.
Everyone, take up arms and fight!" "Right!" Tal snatched up his longsword and charged across the deck. Jewel followed quickly, blade drawn. Paula, the elf, moved without hesitation. And even Kenneth abandoned the cannon to join. Laszlo, trembling, ran after them. "I can do this, just like training." He told himself so, but his heart raced. In training, the swords had been blunted. Today, the blade in his hand was real. Its shape and weight were the same, yet the knowledge it could cut carried a terrible weight. Only 2 boarded, a tall man and a slender woman. Though outnumbered, they stood composed and confident. Their presence alone froze even Tal and Jewel, who gripped their weapons with pale knuckles. "Move, Laszlo!" Snow's voice snapped him back. He raised his sword. Snow struck boldly. Laszlo swung desperately at the man. The man swept Snow's blade aside and in one motion thrust at Laszlo's throat. He froze. At that instant, the woman drove her staff into his side. The blow bent him double. Thank goodness it was only a staff. If it had been a blade, "That's enough." The man's deep voice cut through the air as he lowered his sword. Snow wiped his brow and saluted. Around them, the trainees pressed their hilts to their chests and bowed their heads. The man, Glenn, commander of the Knights of Gaia, glared at them with harsh eyes and barked, "You're slacking. How can you let yourselves be boarded so easily? What if this were real combat?" "We apologize," Snow answered, pale. Beside Glenn, the beautiful Vice Commander Katerina smiled and said, "The cannon fire was excellent. With this, the graduation exercise is complete. Starting tomorrow, you are no longer trainees, but official Knights of Gaian." After a stunned moment, the deck erupted in joy. Tal threw his arms around anyone nearby. Jewel and Paula clasped hands and dashed about. Laszlo reached instinctively towards Snow, who gripped his hand firmly in return. "You've passed, but don't think it a perfect score. Remember your mistakes and never neglect your training." Even Glenn's stern words could not dampen their joy. They all answered in unison, "Yes." Even he allowed a wry smile. Katerina spoke crisply.
"We will now return to the Hall of Knights.
The commander has a speech for the graduates. Tonight, of course, is the celebration of the new knights. Snow, you have an important role, don't you?" "Yes." Snow's face finally relaxed into a smile. That role was to lead the kindling ritual. The Knights of Gaian, guardians of maritime security in the Western Island nations, were based on Rosril in the Dukedom of Gaian. Each year, Rosril held a grand festival to celebrate its new knights. The most important event was the kindling ritual. The one who lit the flame became the star of the festival. This honour was always given to the top graduate. In Snow's case, politics played a role as well. His father, Lord Fingerhut, ruled Roswell and was effectively Master of the Knights. The choice was inevitable. Yet, no one claimed it was only thanks to his father. Snow had proven himself with excellent results and proper conduct. That's why he had commanded this year's graduation exercise. The ship carrying the trainees glided smoothly over the calm sea, bound for Roswell Harbour. The harbour looks so different now, whoa! Leaning over the rail, Tal shouted with excitement. Laszlo felt the same way. From tomorrow, they would no longer be trainees. They would finally become Gaian Knights, just as they had always dreamed. After disembarking, the group headed straight for the Hall of Knights. The building stood right beside the dock, a solid structure that symbolized Roswell itself. Passing through the large gate, a courtyard opened before them, with the training facility at the far end. To the right stood the kitchen and armory, while the spire above led to the commander's quarters. The graduation speech would be held in the training hall at the very back. Laszlo and Snow lined up with the others, waiting for Commander Glenn. When all had gathered, Glenn stepped onto the podium and slowly surveyed the graduates. As of today, you have completed your training and become official members of the Knights of Gaian. On this occasion, I would like to share an experience of mine. Laszlo heard Jewel mutter, "Here it comes," while Paula scolded her in a whisper. He already knew what was coming. Whenever Glenn spoke in that solemn tone, the story was always the same.
Laszlo had heard it countless times in training.
This happened 7 years ago. 4 ships of the Gaian Knights fleet were sunk by a single Kuluk vessel. As expected. Tal, perhaps worn out from the day's events, was already dozing off, while the others exchanged bored glances. Laszlo straightened his back out of respect, but deep down he had hoped for a different speech. Glenn noticed the trainees' expressions and narrowed his eyes slightly. You're probably tired of hearing this, but few know the full details. It is a bitter memory, one those involved rarely wish to recall, including myself. The room grew tense. Kenneth nudged Tal awake. The Kuluk ship was commanded by a young man not much older than you. His name was Troy. Remember that name. He will surely become your enemy. He is one of the Kuluk Navy's greatest strategists, a genius of naval warfare known as the Child of the Sea God. The trainees exchanged uneasy glances. Laszlo too stared at Glenn in disbelief. A young man our age? Sinking 4 Gaian ships with just one? The Knights of Gaian were a powerful order, with relentless training and excellent equipment. That someone so young had destroyed 4 ships was difficult to accept. Kuluk's Troy. Laszlo etched the name into his memory. We must never endure such humiliation again. I expect each of you to become knights who will surpass Troy. The future of Gaian rests upon your shoulders. That concludes my speech. Congratulations on your graduation. The trainees raised their right hands in salute. Glenn and Vice Commander Katerina returned the gesture. With the address finished, the festival began at last. Laszlo and Snow headed into town. Evening settled over Rosrill. Walking beside Snow, Laszlo noticed how often townspeople stopped them with greetings. "Congratulations on your graduation, Master Snow. Good luck with your role in the kindling ritual." The people warmly congratulated Lord Fingerhut's son. Snow responded cheerfully each time. Laszlo also received a few words, though mostly in the form of reminders. Assist Master Snow on his big day. Most of the town knew their history. 15 years earlier, Laszlo had drifted ashore in Rosrill as a shipwrecked orphan. His parents' fate was unknown, but the townspeople had named him Laszlo of Rosrill. Though some teased the boring name, Laszlo treasured it. It gave him pride and belonging. It was Lord Fingerhut who had taken him in and raised him. Since Laszlo was close in age to Snow, he grew up as his playmate and attendant. Even the chance to enter the trainee program had been arranged by the Lord. Snow, kind-hearted, always treated him as an equal, but Laszlo never forgot the Lord's favour. Even now, he naturally stepped back to let Snow take the lead.
Laszlo, congratulations on your graduation!
Startled, Laszlo turned. It was rare for anyone besides Snow to call his name so directly. Running up was Chipu, a Nakobold. Snow let out a surprised "Whoa!" Nakobolds were curious beings, feline heads atop human-like bodies, about the height of a small person. Intelligent and articulate, they wore clothes and shoes like humans. From afar, they might look like people in cat masks, but their glowing yellow eyes gave them away. Chipu, are you here for the festival too?
No, I still have to finish at the shop. My master's strict. I just came to say congratulations, Laszlo.
Thank you.
Well, do your best starting tomorrow.
Chipu hurried back to the shopping district. Few Nakobolds lived in Rosrill. Their homeland was Ney Island, far to the east. For reasons of his own, Chipu had come alone and was working part-time at an item shop. Hard-working and friendly, he was well liked. Laszlo, who often visited on errands, knew him well. Snow, who rarely shopped himself, had never met him. Watching Chipu leave, he whispered, "I'd heard the rumours, but that's my first time seeing one. So that's a Nakobold. He's a good guy." "I see. If you say so, I believe you. I'm just not used to them." Snow quickly brightened with a smile. "Come on, the kindling ritual is about to start." A citizen handed him a torch, which he lifted with confidence. Pride swelled in Laszlo's chest. Admiring sighs rose from the crowd, followed by applause as people cleared a path. "Congratulations on your graduation! Please protect Rosrill for many years." With each greeting, Snow lit the small torches of the townspeople along the cobblestone path. This was Rosrill's most important annual event, the kindling ritual. It symbolized the bond between knights and townsfolk, a tradition that cemented the Order's place on the island. Halfway through, Snow turned. "Want to try?" "Huh?" Laszlo shook his head in surprise. The ritual was an honor for the graduating knight's representative. He wasn't qualified. But Snow smiled and pressed a torch into his hand. "Don't hold back. You graduated with excellent results too." "But it feels good not to stand alone in the spotlight. Share it with me." Snow could be insistent. Half reluctant, half compelled, Laszlo accepted. Awkward at first, he moved along lighting the townspeople's torches. Isn't that Master Snow? Laszlo, why is he? Each time someone questioned it, Snow explained, Laszlo is taking over for me. When a little girl shyly offered her torch and whispered, Congratulations, Laszlo finally smiled. The embarrassment lingered, but he felt the warmth of the town's celebration wash over him. He reminded himself that he was no longer a trainee. He was now a knight, sworn to protect this island. Happiness and pride swelled in his chest. When the last torch was lit, Snow raised his voice. Look, Laszlo, all those flames! The path they had taken sloped gently downward. From the plaza above, they could see all the way to the sea. Countless orange flames flickered in the twilight, swaying with the movement of the people. The sight was breathtaking. Though Laszlo had witnessed the kindling ritual many times, seeing it as a graduate filled him with a new emotion. Even the ever-present sound of the waves felt different tonight. It's beautiful. I hope days like this last forever, Snow murmured, then glanced at Laszlo with a shy smile. Forget I said that. Not very knightly of me. Laszlo smiled back. The truth was, he felt the same. Training had prepared him to face monsters and pirates, but more than anything, he hoped for days of peace to continue. Watching the flames burn in the twilight, he silently wished that their quiet glow would endure forever. In the plaza, long tables were laden with food and wine. The knights sang loudly and laughed. Laszlo spotted Tal, Kenneth, Jewel, and Paula among the crowd. Snow glanced in their direction and said to Laszlo, You should join them. I'm heading back home. Huh? My father is holding a celebratory feast, gathering Rosril's prominent citizens. It'll be a cramped affair, but as the guest of honor, I can't avoid showing up. With a shrug and a casual, here we go, expression, Snow dashed off. Laszlo watched him go, then walked towards his friends. Yo, Laszlo, where's Master Snow? Tal called out, balancing a large plate of food. Among the trainees, Tal was infamous for his appetite, and tonight's feast had left him looking blissfully content. When Tal said master, it was never fully sincere. It was always a tease. Laszlo answered as if he hadn't noticed. He went back to the hall. Lord Vinkerhut is holding a feast. I see. So he can't eat the food here in the plaza. As expected of the master, he has a refined palate. Tal, Snow didn't mean it like that. I know. Tal tore into a large piece of chicken with a loud chomp, grumbling as he chewed. Hey Laszlo. Huh? You've already done enough to repay the Vinkerhut family. You've been working since you were a kid, right? Starting tomorrow, you're not Snow's attendant anymore. You're a full-fledged knight. Stop worrying about him all the time. I'm not trying to worry about him. You may not intend to, but from the outside. Tal trailed off, glanced at Laszlo, and let his eyebrows sink into a small frown. Sorry, that wasn't my place. I shouldn't comment on that. It's okay. Laszlo understood Tal's feelings. He was frustrated with Laszlo, who always remained in Snow's shadow. Some of their peers had mocked Laszlo as Snow's hanger-on, sneering at him as the master's lackey. Each time Tal had taken it seriously, confronting them head-on. Laszlo had often been the one to restrain Tal's hot-headedness. Tal's concern meant something, but Laszlo had no intention of changing his stance.
let people laugh if they wanted. Without the Vingerhut family's support, he wouldn't have survived this long. He had resolved, then and now, to serve the Lord's house faithfully, without wavering. "Hey, you two, what are you talking about?" A cheerful voice rang out. Jewel arrived, followed by Paula and Kenneth. They were Laszlo's closest companions among the trainees. Jewel was lively, with short, platinum blonde hair. Though slender, she had outstanding warrior potential. A small red triangular mark on her forehead was a symbol of her home, Nanal Island. She had left her strict island chief behind, saying they had decided to part ways. Always cheerful, she kept the group's spirits high. Paula, by contrast, was calm and composed, an elf girl. Aside from her pointed ears, she looked mostly human, but her senses were sharper than any human's. She could detect the faintest sounds and the slightest changes in nature. Though quiet and seemingly cold, once known, her delicate and kind nature became clear. Kenneth had stood out in today's artillery battle. Among the trainees, he ranked near the top alongside Snow. He excelled at reading tides and predicting weather. Even when others joked around, he could step back and observe. But he wasn't unsociable. He often humoured Jewel's antics, earning Commander Glenn's scoldings in the process. A dependable tactician, in short. "Don't eat too much, Tal," Jewel warned, raising a fist. "Tomorrow we're knights. We have to get up early for our first duty." "What will that be, I wonder?" Paula asked. "Probably coastal patrols. I heard last year's graduates say the first duties are always simple," Kenneth replied. "Patrols? Basically just rounds? Boring," Jewel grumbled, slamming her fists together. "Isn't there any work that gets the blood pumping, like smashing pirates or fighting the Kuluk Navy?" "Don't say such reckless things. Fresh graduates won't be sent to jobs like that. Pirates have been quiet anyway." "That's not true. Haven't you heard the rumours about the 6-masted ships and Pirate Brando?" "I've heard of them," Paula murmured. This was news to Laszlo. Leaning closer, Jewel explained in an ominous tone. "They are pirates roaming the island nations. I hear they're ruthless, merciless. Merchant ships loaded with goods often fall prey to them. But they rarely appear in the coastal waters we'll be patrolling. Pirates usually target big merchant ships trading between islands," Kenneth said with a laugh. Tal, having just finished his plate, spoke up. "What about Kuluk? I've heard rumours of suspicious activity lately." "Huh, you actually know something for once, Tal?" Jewel teased. Before Tal could retort, Kenneth continued. "Do you remember the name the commander mentioned in his lecture?" "Of course, Try, right?" "Yeah, at our age, he sank 4 Gaian ships with just 1 vessel." "Really? Maybe the commander exaggerated, to motivate us," Jewel said doubtfully. "No, I've heard of Kuluk's Try. They say he's a true genius, supposedly insanely strong, like a demon, called the Child of the Sea God." "The Child of the Sea God? Someone like that exists?" Jewel pressed her cheeks with both hands, eyes wide. Paula chuckled softly. "This isn't a joke, Jewel. We probably won't face him anytime soon, but someday there could be a battle against a fleet led by Troy. We need to train hard enough to stand against the Child of the Sea God." "Of course! The future of the Knights of Gaian rests on me!" Jewel shouted boldly, thrusting her hand into the air. At that moment, the sky suddenly lit up. A low, booming sound rolled like thunder. Laszlo and the others turned towards the sea. "Whoa!" Jewel cheered. Against a dark night sky, giant blossoms of light burst open. Fireworks celebrating the birth of the new nights. Red, yellow, green, orange, brilliant colours painted the heavens. The glow reflected on Jewel at the others' faces. Beautiful, Paula whispered in awe. Tal's usually fiery eyes glimmered faintly. I see them every year, but this time really feels different. Of course, they're for us. Let's do our best. Starting tomorrow, we're knights. Yeah! Laszlo pressed shoulders with his companions, gazing at the night sky, lost in thought. He wished Snow could have been here too. Not at some suffocating feast, but here in the plaza, laughing, singing, and dreaming of the future with close friends. The story continues in Chapter 2, The Pirate Brando. If you enjoyed this reading, please give a like and a comment so that I know there is enough interest to continue with this novelization and potentially other novelizations such as those for Suikoden 1, 2, and 5, as well as the short story collections and other Suikoden publications. Bye!